This interview with the bootlegger's grandson, Heath Schneider of Iowa Legendary Rye on old-fashioned football on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today and start making smarter bets. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, that's KUTT.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. The guys just dropped their bonus behind-the-scenes episode of Sean winning $200,000. Plus, this week's Pick'em prize is a free $250 Super Bowl square. SportsGamblingPodcast.com/Patreon to join today.
Hey, what's up? This is Sam Acho, and you're listening to Old Fashioned Football.
Old Fashioned Football.
You make this deal right now, you pancake eating mother.
All right, deal.
Old Fashioned Football.
Welcome to Old Fashioned Football. If you're wondering who you're listening to, this is J Mark. You can find me on the X at J Mark Football. You can find us on the X at Old Fashioned FB. And if you're wondering who is us, let me bring in my co-host on the pod and in life. You can find her on the X at the Mark. How you doing today?
Doing great, Justin. I'm really excited for today's episode. It's going to be a fun one.
It is very rich history, very rich Iowa history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited. Should we just get right into it?
We should. Let's jump in.
Let's do it. All right, everybody, we kind of pumped this up already. We told you about it, and the day is here. Our guest has many different titles, but the one we're going to bring him in as is the bootlegger's grandson, Heath Schneider. Heath, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Very excited to have you.
Yeah, this is an Iowa whiskey. The history is all Iowa, so being Iowans, we're really excited, but I think everybody's going to find this very fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Before we dive into asking you all about the distillery and getting some more information on your history, we always ask our guests we start off with asking about some football. And before we started the show, you mentioned you're an Eagles fan. We talk a lot of football with our whiskey. Do you happen to play any fantasy football? Are you into fantasy football?
So all my friends are into fantasy football. Seriously, I'm probably the only person who isn't an ardent follower of fantasy football, and that's only because I'm so busy traveling the world peddling whiskey. So I catch the highlights, and I certainly cheer on my friends. And I definitely enjoy football. I may actually get to go to a really well-known venue for the Super Bowl this year. I may end up in the foundation room at the top of Mandalay Bay with a bunch of NFL alumni. So that's going to be my maybe I should start getting more into fantasy football when I actually know players. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is really cool.
Are you rooting for anybody specific in the Super Bowl?
Well, being an Iowan, I better watch for Kansas City. I could lose a lot of friends. I've got a lot of friends down there for that matter. So,
sure.
Yeah, I got to give Kansas City. Although I'm sure you know this. We've got an Iowa State quarterback in Purdy at San Francisco. So I mean, it's going to go good for me either way. I got a horse in both camps.
There you go.
And we got Kittle too.
Yeah.
The 49ers tight end. Yeah. So they've got two Iowa players. Well, Iowa State and Iowa.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I know a lot of people around here. They're all rooting for the Chiefs.
Yep. I'm going to disappoint them all by rooting for the 49ers. I think I just want to see them win it. I mean, Chiefs have had their day the past couple years here, so it'd be nice to see the Niners get it.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we jump right into to whiskey here? Like we said, you're the bootlegger's grandson, that bootlegger being Lorine Sextro. Can you give us a little history on how your family got into making whiskey?
Boy, I don't even know that we knew we were into whiskey till she was a pretty old gal. You know,
Really?
my grandmother, it was really strange because I just knew her as Grandma Sextro, you know,
Mhm.
and Grandma Sextro had 32 grandchildren. So big family.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, she did her bootlegging when she was 18. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And I mean, I always tell people this because people don't have a lot of perspective for 1932. But,
Yeah.
you know, women had just gotten the right to vote in, you know, a decade or so earlier. And Iowa was early to the prohibition. Iowa got into prohibition, was one of the first two states, Maine and Iowa. And that was, you know, in the 20s. So grandma was bootlegging in March 1932, shortly after she was married, to feed her kids. And what's weird about the town of Templeton, even today, is anybody who really did it is tight-lipped. You know, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to name names. You know, it's really funny because the hardest part for me is people come in the distillery all the time and they're like, you know, I knew your grandpa and grandma back when they were bootleggers, and I knew this and I did that and I drove for such and such. And I'm like, God, let's get that on film. Oh no, I'm not going to film that because it's a thing. So I learned late in my life about grandma being a bootlegger, and it kind of found me. I didn't find it.
Okay, nice. That's really interesting.
It is.
I know a lot of people, you know, bootlegging was technically wrong, but I saw a special you had done where you guys had kind of talked about, like, it's not that anybody was trying to do anything wrong. They were trying to make a living.
Yet trying to feed their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was, to the point for farmers in Iowa, it was really a decision of, do I feed my kids?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my grandma was all about family. She's worked from the time she was from eighth grade. She graduated eighth grade and then was farmed out as a midwife till she was 18.
Wow.
And, you know, a midwife in the 30s is not a midwife today. A midwife in the 30s is the lady was put in bed and you basically did all her chores, helped her with birth, helped her after birth, and then went to the next lady. And then you didn't even get the money. Your parents got the money. So that was kind of her deal from eighth grade till she got married. And then she ends up on a farm with my Aunt Shirley in her belly. And the Depression is in full effect. So, you know, they're farmers, you know, they're growing corn, they're raising pigs, they're chickens, eggs. None of that had any value, but what did have value in Templeton, Iowa, was whiskey. You know, that had great value. And funny part about that is these German women, because it was women, which is really unusual, again, for that time.
Yeah.
German women were using their skill set to make bread, and they kind of used it to make whiskey because it's not that far off. It's yeast, you know, you're just working yeast and feeding yeast. And so it was a weird set of circumstances that turned her into a whiskey maker. And it was only for 6 or 7 months. But again, it put Christmas presents under the tree. You know, and it fed them, and it got them to the point where they'd go back to farming.
Not very nice.
Yeah. So the recipe that you're using now, it's the only existing 100% rye recipe from the 1930s that's still out there, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
The one surviving recipe from that time and place. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the differences of a 1930s rye whiskey and whiskey today?
There's one big difference, and that's chemistry. Back in the 30s, they didn't have chemical engineers. And so there was no chemicals used. It was just anything you could find in your kitchen. So we always tell people, if you couldn't do it in a barn in 1932, we don't do it today. But you go to a modern day distillery and they're using alpha amylase, beta amylase. They're using artificial flavors and colors. We don't do any of that. Our whole North Star is, if I could put you two in a time machine and ship you back to 1932 and you could try what was on the streets of Chicago, you'd be like, holy smokes, I've already had this. It's Iowa Legendary Rye.
Yeah.
So that's our goal, But as far as I know, and again, I always have to qualify this because I've only been in the liquor business for 7-8 years, and that sounds like a long time, but it's nothing compared to most.
Sure.
As far as I know, we're the only liquor company in America that uses no chemicals, uses no artificial flavors, no artificial colors. And so I think that's really neat because I don't think it only tastes good, but I think it feels pretty good in comparison.
Yeah, for sure. So the distillery is located in Carroll, Iowa, and it's open to the public Friday and Saturday. And I was looking, in the tasting room contains the original still that your grandma made whiskey in, which was dug up from underground, correct?
Yeah, we use cadaver dogs, the same dogs they use to find bodies in Iowa. When somebody gets lost and they're like, we can't find them, let's get the dogs. So we had a guy named Jim Peters who runs the cadaver dogs for the state of Iowa. He trained his dogs on how to search for whiskey.
Wow.
We gave him whiskey staves, and I paid college to come in with ground penetrating radar. And we probably spent 3-4 weeks searching 320 acres for some buried barrels. My grandpa told my Aunt Shirley on his deathbed, hey, I buried some barrels out on the farm. You should go dig them up.
Wow.
And we're like, what?
Wow.
And this is just like, huh? So I hired the dogs, paid Jim to train them up. We were out there kind of like Geraldo Rivera looking for Jimmy Hoffa. We're out there looking, and some people are making the comparison. And obviously this Vegas guy, I live in Vegas for travel purposes. This Vegas guy's back in Iowa searching the fields for barrels, and we found my grandma's still, which is awesome.
Wow.
So you didn't know you were going to find the still. You were just looking for the barrels. And
we were looking for anything. There's been a lot of misrepresentation of that time and place, even some deceptive trade practices as it goes to that topic. And so, we're always searching for the provenance of it all. We're always searching for, who's real and who's just talking. And so we thought it'd be great if we found barrels for a couple reasons. First of all, 100-year-old rye whiskey barrels that were known as Al Capone's favorite recipe might be relatively valuable.
Right.
Yeah. But, we found the still. We found bottles from 1932. We reassembled it. We had Whiskey Rich, who is a 5th generation bootlegger. He's the one who got the recipe from my grandmother. We had him reassemble it. So it's what we believe the closest version of what it looked like when it was operated. And people can come see it anytime. You mentioned we're open Saturdays or weekends. We're open every day of the week, just so you know.
Every day. Okay.
Okay.
You just ring the bell. Our Max, our 6th generation distiller, first legal distiller, like legal from the time he started,
Sure.
is there pretty much 5-6 days a week. And we love to have people come in and see what we do. We think it's the best part of our business.
Awesome. Well, your parents are up in Storm Lake, so we're definitely going to have to swing by sometime on the way.
Yes.
You're absolutely welcome. And anybody that watches this, it's probably best to give the distillery a call. Our number's on Google, easy to find. And we welcome people. You can take the 5-minute tour, you can take the 50-minute tour. It's your decision. And we'll show you everything we do. Well, 99% of what we do.
Right. Yeah. All right. We're going to get right back to talking about the Iowa Legendary Rye with the bootlegger's grandson, Heath Schneider. But we got to let you know that we are brought to you by the SGP Patreon. That's right. Our own Patreon. The guys just dropped this month's bonus episode, behind the scene breakdown of how Sean won $200,000 on, we won't even say where he won it, but he won it. And this week's Patreon Pick'em prize is a free $250 Super Bowl square, plus access to all the pick sheet and exclusive content on Discord. Just head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is awesome. You've heard us talk about it over and over. You can win 25 times your money with just a 60-second entry. It only takes 60 seconds to enter, and it's based on fantasy projections. So it's really easy. And one of my favorite things, Prize Picks has a reboot policy. So that means if one of your players gets hurt in the first half and doesn't return in the second half, that player is rebooted. No more losing money because of injuries. One of the things I like on there right now, you got to go with Travis Kelce more on his receiving yards. Might as well take George Kittle too. Let's take George Kittle, the Iowa Hawkeye, while we're talking about Iowa Legendary Rye. And that's all you got to do. Just go to prizepicks.com/SGPN and use code SGPN for first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/SGPN, code SGPN. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. You mentioned Al Capone. I saw that he said that this was the good stuff. Yeah. This is what he was drinking. How many states was the bootlegged whiskey being distributed to at that time? Do you guys know?
Well, that's a great question. So what's interesting about bootlegging and distribution in 1932 is generally done through the railroads. That was the most reliable transportation at that time. Now, Al Capone was known to send guys from Chicago down to Templeton, Iowa, but in 1932, Templeton, Iowa to Chicago was a 2-track dirt road, so it was rough going. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe in an emergency or maybe in a, hey, we just need it. So that was being done. But what's interesting is the Burlington Railroad, if you ever look at it on a map, it goes as high as St. Paul, Minnesota. It goes as low as St. Louis, Missouri. It goes as far over to the east as Chicago, Illinois, and it goes all the way out to Denver. So they would stop that train, unload sugar, load barrels, and use that as the way to get whiskey all over the United States.
Very cool.
Awesome. That's so interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the things that we noticed that is different from other distilleries we've talked with is that you use 15-gallon barrels versus the traditional 53-gallon barrels. And that's what your grandmother used. Can you talk about like how that changes the aging process for the whiskey? And then one of the things we were wondering too is like what led to the decision to use 15-gallon barrels?
Yeah. So 15-gallon barrel, if you ever look at, again, I always reference people back to Prohibition. There's pictures. So it's all out there. But if you ever look at Prohibition pictures when they're busting up barrels, beer barrels were 53-gallon, but whiskey barrels were 15-gallon. And because our North Star is, hey, if you got shipped back to 1932, what would that have tasted like? Well, it was 15-gallon barrels back then. And we use Minnesota White Oak Level 5 char. That's probably more than you want to know. But again, kind of part of the history. It's the closest place we can get oak that works well with whiskey. So we use those. And my grandma always said, you can't run with a 53-gallon barrel, which is
true.
Yeah,
kind of true. My grandpa could run with 15-gallon barrels. They're about 220 pounds. And we use that. What's neat about it also, because we don't do an age statement. People are like, how long's your whiskey been in the barrel? We're searching for a color and a taste. We're not searching for a time. And because we age in storage containers outdoors in Iowa, it's really weather dependent. If it gets really hot in summer and really cold in the winter, it happens faster than if we have mild weather. So we're always seeking that taste and color, which is the same as grandma said, it's got to be color of a penny and it's got to have a sweet aroma. So we chase that. And the significance of 15-gallon barrel is you're getting 3.15 times more wood per ounce of liquor. So you technically get faster aging, but that's not why we do it. We do it because we want to be the only liquor you can buy that is from that time and that place. And if you really want to know what they used to drink back then, we think we're the one option you've got.
Yeah, it would be just like,
just kind of hitting on that and how you guys have the original still set up. You mentioned before we started this that the background you have there is the barn from the 1930s, and just all this kind of tip of the hat, I guess, to the history, kind of speaks to, do you feel like that kind of speaks to the authenticity of, hey, we're really sticking to how this originally was done, and we really want, that's what our goal is. We want it exactly how it was originally.
Yeah, I wish I could sit in that barn and talk to everybody who wants to talk to me. It's back in Iowa, and the reason I use it as a virtual background is it reminds me of who I am, what I am, where I come from, what we're trying to do here that's different, and it's near and dear to me. If you look right over there, that's my grandfather's hand painted initials. Oh, wow. And if you look at the wall behind me, it's straight behind me. You'd have to go see it at the distillery. It still has sketches of formulas and people and dollar figures. I mean, it's just with a black light, it's amazing. And I always tell people, just take a look at that wall. That's the bootlegging business in its real form. So, for me, I think that's cool. I just think it's, I just don't think Americans realize how hard life was on the farm during in the 30s, during the Depression, and just fighting to survive. So when I'm out here doing my thing, and when things get tough, I'm always like, well, you know what? It's been a lot tougher. Grandma put a whole lot tougher work than that. And so it's just a good, friendly reminder for me of who we are, what we are, and what we're trying to do. So yeah, we really like this stuff behind us.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very neat. You mentioned earlier, you've heard people come in and they'll share stories with you. And are there any that you're willing to share with us?
Well, we had Al Capone's driver come in, allegedly. We had the guy who drove Al Capone. He's like, I was his driver, and and this is the real thing, and you guys got it exactly right. And I'm like, great, let's go, man. Let's just I can't do that. And then the kingpin of Templeton was Joe Earlbeck. Joe Earlbeck, his driver, came in again, allegedly, because these, we have people come in constantly talking about the good old days and what they knew and who they knew and their uncle this and their sister that. But we get some really authentic, these people are in their 90s, some of them are neighboring 100. And it's just, it's fun to hear them tell their stories, and they're very adamant about it all the way up to filming them. So, it's a love-hate relationship for me, because I almost want to put a secret camera in just to catch these people, because it's all so tight-lipped. You'd think it was still illegal if you didn't know better, because just like my grandma, they'll go like, okay, so I used to be a bootlegger. You're like, buddy, it's legal now. They're like indoctrinated into, oh, this is a secret, so I better check around. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Earlbeck, you guys still get the rye and the grain from the same farm, correct?
His cousin. Yeah. So Joe Earlbeck's cousin is Brian Earlbeck. Brian runs a Century farm over in Manning, Iowa. And we get our rye. It's a purpose-grown rye. It's grown in Wisconsin glacier soil, if you know what that is. The soil was actually dragged in all the way from Wisconsin into the beautiful Carroll County, Iowa. And we grow our rye on that soil organically, no herbicides, no pesticides. We've been organic grain for 4 years now. And it's a beautiful farm and just right there in Carroll County.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. I love that it's organic too.
Yeah, I was just going to hit on that too, because it feels like as we drive to her parents, the farther north we get, the less organic it smells kind of in the air. So it's great to hear when a farm is going organic for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to interrupt the bootlegger's grandson one more time, just to let you know that we're brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. If it has a viable outcome that can be graded, you can bet it on Cut with your friends or your internet rivals. But you know what? Who wants to bet their internet rival, never knowing if they're going to get paid if they win? You don't have to worry about that because Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to chase anyone down and cut them. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and you get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. You win. They win. Everybody's a winner at Cut, the peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, that's KUTT.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus.
We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. The NFL season is not over yet, and you can win bigger by betting smarter with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value.
And we just used it yesterday to give out our play on the thing that we can't mention, rhymes with Wonder Hug, but it went 4 for 4 using Hall of Fame Bets app. It's amazing. So stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets app to craft more intelligent data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. So you guys have a variety of different products. You got the white label moonshine, the black label rye, red label rye, purple label, gold label. We're going to try some copper label in a little bit here, but these all start with the same recipe, but have a little bit of differences. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So everything's water, sugar, rye, and yeast. Okay. That's the recipe. That's, if you watch any special on Templeton, you know, at that time and place, the first thing they'll say is water, sugar, rye, yeast, the 4 ingredients that made Templeton, Iowa famous. So we do that. And we use bread baker's yeast, the same yeast you can buy in the grocery store. It's Fleischmann's yeast. Very unusual to use bread baker's yeast in whiskey. Most people use high yield yeast because it creates more yield. But again, that's what grandma did. So that's what we're doing. And we think it creates a buttery, you know, we just love the flavor it kicks off. So it's an added benefit. But that's our recipe. And we make it 3 gallons at a time. So, you know, every batch is 3 gallons, not 3,000 gallons, but might be the small, again, could be the smallest batch size in the world. I tell people in the business, I make liquor 3 gallons at a time, and they tell me, and I'm an idiot. They really are. You're an idiot, man. 3 gallons at a time, really? But again, this is all harkening back to what was done at that time during that time. So the recipe is the same throughout. All we're doing is still play and barrel play to get different expressions. So the white label has never seen a barrel. And then the black label was put in a new charred oak barrel. The red label was put in an experienced barrel because bootleggers didn't throw barrels away. You used them 5 times and then you were done with them. You'd burn them. But we use all our barrels 5 times. So that's red label is use 2 through 5. And then copper label is a blend of a new barrel use, a used barrel use, and a double barrel, double distill barrel use. So it's just, it's barrel play. And then purple label, which is our high proof, that comes out as high as 156 proof. Wow. And you can go try it at the distillery, even though it sells for $200 a bottle. We pour it for free every day of the week. So you're welcome.
Awesome.
And the way we get to 156 proof is we actually take a barrel of black, which is your new barrel, and then we redistill it in our proprietary stills. So what's neat about our stills, because they make such small batches, is they're more like a scalpel and less like a chainsaw. So we can leave flavor behind while cutting color and put it back in a brand new barrel at a much higher proof. And it just works the hell out of that barrel. It just gets dark, deep, and chews into the cellulose. And we think it's a one-of-a-kind offering. Of all the products we make, you know, because I run across a lot of, pardon the phrase, but I run across a lot of whiskey snobs, people who think we've had everything. And, you know, like my favorite part is, so I went into Caesar's Palace at one time, and, you know, they're like, you know, who the hell are you? So, you know, I'm like, well, hey, before I leave, you got to try this. Just try this purple label. I let them try it. They're like, wait a second here. Holy smokes. I've never had anything like this. That's how we got into Caesar's Palace. But to answer your question, you know, whether it be white or black or red or copper or gold or purple, it's just barrel play and still play. And then strangely, each version of play creates a new flavor profile. So we just feel like everybody's got a favorite. You know, one of the more entertaining parts of being in the business also is everybody's got a favorite, and it's never the same one. You know, I meet one guy, oh, the red's the best. Okay, yeah, red's best. Oh, no, the black's best. Next guy. Talk to a gal, oh, the purple's my favorite. So, you know, we make them all because we're not trying to have you like them all. We're just trying to find the one you like the most.
Yeah.
So you guys got copper, and copper is our newest creation. What copper is it's a new barrel and an experienced barrel blended 50-50. And we're going to come out with that this spring. And I think it's delicious because it's kind of the best of both worlds. The black barrel, because it's a new barrel, is more smoky and spicy. And the red barrel is a little more soft and sweet. So if we take soft and sweet and blend it with spicy and smoky, it's just got a whole variety of flavors. And that's what we say.
Makes it very complex.
Yeah. Complex and easy and fun and reasonably priced, which is all important stuff.
What is your favorite of the labels that you make?
So I like white label, and that's somewhat of the purist in me. You know, I think the barrel gets in the way. And again, everybody's got an opinion, but I specifically like white label off the still while it's running. And if you guys venture down there, like you want to have a deathbed experience, something you'll remember the day you're passing away, be like, oh, I remember when I sipped off a still that was running at 165 proof and it was still warm. That's my favorite. And that's one of the main reasons I travel to Iowa. And if you guys get back there, if you give me a 2-hour notice, I'll be like, hey, Max, turn on a still. We got to show them what new make tastes like right off the worm.
All right.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that. We are going to make it there.
For sure.
Delicious.
I would like to circle back to when I've just been thinking about this, digging up the barrels, finding bottles in the still. Did you try any of the bottles that you found?
No, they had all been busted. You know,
okay.
It looked like everything was kind of thrown in a hole in a big hurry.
Okay.
And we just really didn't find any perfect sample because we were going to, being the crazy people we were going to try to harvest yeast off of it. So we had the actual yeast from 1932.
Yes. Yep.
A lot of people don't know yeast is a living organism and you can propagate it. So I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have the yeast my grandma had in 1932? But
for sure.
We weren't successful with that. So we still use her recipe, the Fleischmann's yeast recipe. And it's still fantastic. But to your point, I wish we'd have found just a bottle or just enough to pull a sample, but it too much time had taken place and too much Iowa weather had been put on it.
Yes. Okay.
So you mentioned that you're in a casino there in Vegas. Now, if you get it in Iowa, it's Iowa Legendary Rye. If you get it outside of Iowa, it's Sextro Rye, correct?
Yeah, we're still playing around with that. So funny story. Everything's a funny story in the liquor business, of course. But you wouldn't believe how hard it is to sell Iowa Legendary Rye in Nebraska, for the record.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, just for the record.
Yeah.
Something about the Cornhuskers and Iowa Hawkeyes just doesn't work. And same could be said in Texas. You'd be really surprised at how hard it is to sell anything with the word Iowa in it in Texas. So we created a secondary brand. It's generally the same juice. We've debated making Sextro all cask strength and Iowa Legendary Rye all 80 proof, but no decision has been made on that yet. But you're going to find us throughout Iowa as Iowa Legendary Rye. You're going to find us in Nevada as Iowa Legendary Rye because the casinos, they like Iowa. They think Iowa is really kind of niche. And we established it down here almost 6 years ago. We're in 35 casinos now, every liquor store. We do a pretty good job in Vegas. And yet again, a piece of information you'd never guess, but Vegas is the toughest liquor market in the world because liquor companies come here to lose money. They're like, you know what? I don't care if we lose $5 million. I want to be in Vegas. So
Sure. Yeah.
there you go. And so then every casino I go to, well, are you willing to lose $5 million? And I'm like, hell no, I'm not willing to lose $5.
Right.
But, it's very a good feather in our cap that we're successful in Iowa, and we're served in a lot of places for such a crafty distillery.
Just out of curiosity, are you guys at the Circa Las Vegas?
You know what? We're at Circa Barry's Prime in the basement of Circa, and it's supposed to be one of the fanciest steakhouses in Vegas. Certainly one of the most expensive. I can speak to that. And I know Barry. Barry bought a barrel for himself. He sampled 4 barrels. He tried a black label barrel that he loved, and he bought a barrel. We called it Barry's Iowa Legendary Rye. So it's got Barry's logo at the top, and it's got our logo where it has to be as per the TTB. And you can try it there. We're trying to get in the main casino. We're actively updating our list of where we are in Vegas because we're really trying to get Iowans when they travel to Vegas to search out Iowa products.
Yeah, for sure.
To this date, I don't know why Iowans aren't more brand loyal to Iowa products. You go to Texas, and pardon my French, but you could sell a turd if it said Texas on it in Texas.
Right.
I swear to God. It's the strangest thing I've ever experienced. And, some could say the same is true for just about any state. But for whatever reason, Iowa products, Iowa-made products for Iowans, it's a tough sell. And maybe it's price point. I'm embarrassed to say that the number 1 selling liquor in Iowa is Black Velvet. And I'm just like, oh my God, really? You know what? You can't tell. And, Whiskey Rich and I laugh about it all the time. Our friends always come up to us and say, I drink your liquor over any other liquor, but price point, I got to buy Black Velvet. Thanks for coming by and having a sample. And
Iowans are cheap, I guess.
Well, it's tragic because I don't even care if it was not my distillery, but just an Iowa distillery. Sure. A lot of Iowans don't know that most of the corn that goes into bourbon comes from Iowa. And then, we take our most precious, beautiful commodity, corn, and we ship it up to Kentucky where they make the real money, and it's like, why? Why do we do that? And it's a pretty hot button for me. So we should probably drop that subject.
Well, with the Circa Las Vegas, the guys that run the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, they're very close with Derek Stevens, who's I don't know if he's the owner or one of the head honchos there. So we'll put a bug in their ear to put a bug in his ear. You guys got to get that Iowa Legendary Rye.
Yeah, please. And, we've got some Iowa CEOs of casinos. Like there's a gal who used to play basketball with my sister. That's the CEO of the Westgate, which is, where Elvis first played. So, there's some Iowans out there. We just got to create a little more loyalty.
Yeah, yes. There you go.
We've got to put you on the spot here. And we've asked every guest that we've brought on other distilleries, we make them answer this question. Okay. What is your favorite non Iowa Legendary Rye whiskey?
So it's got to be a rye whiskey?
Well, no, just whiskey. Yeah. Sorry, just any non-Iowa Legendary whiskey.
I think High West makes a nice product. Yes, we went head to head with them at the Denver International Spirits Competition, and we put their $150 million distillery against our $1,500 distillery, and and beat their ass. But I thought they make really good product. You know, it's tasty. It's not too harsh. I think they do a nice job.
You know, you mentioned price point, and I'm sure listeners thinking, you know, doing that small 3 gallons at a time, 15-gallon barrels, they probably think that it costs a lot, because when you think about that being such a small barrel, so many people associate small barrel with high cost. But your price point is really good for it's such a small barrel type product like that. I mean, people should be ashamed for grabbing Black Velvet instead of
from your mouth to God's ears, I swear to you. But what's your health worth for that matter? Because it's not just the liquor you're consuming, but it's chemicals. People don't realize that alpha amylase and beta amylase, if you put it on your hands, causes lesions. You know, if you look at people who used to work in bread factories, they'd have lesions all over their hand from alpha and beta amylase. So I agree with you. We sell at about a $39 price point for black and red label, $49 for copper. I mean, we have a $200 offering. It's because we've got to cut 3 black barrels to get a purple barrel, and it's exceptional. So, people, and I mean, you can get our white, which again, in my opinion, makes the best Bloody Mary, the best margarita, even though it's not tequila. That's a $29 bottle, and it's just absolutely delicious. So to your point, I think it's worth the extra, $14? $14, $1 per shot. So hopefully that conveys. It's a good point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you mind walking us through a little virtual tasting here? We've got our bottle back here. I've been itching to try it ever since we got it. I've held off. We just poured this and we're smelling it, and it smells amazing.
Yeah, it smells very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all barrel. There's no artificial flavors. And again, no color added. And what you're tasting actually is the rye.
Mm-hmm.
That is very good.
Yeah, I like that. It's the bottle we're looking at says it's 100 proof, right around. I like that you get that really nice sweetness, and then the finish just has a little bit of heat, not much, just a nice little warming sensation in there. So you get the nice sweet and heat. That's I really like that.
I'm getting some.
Do you notice how the heat stays on the tongue and it doesn't go to the throat?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I contend that the heat on the throat is the chemicals. It's not the whiskey, nor is it the alcohol. I learned this from a chef. Heat is supposed to hit you on the tongue. You don't have taste buds in your throat. So when you taste like a jalapeno or a spicy food, it's supposed to be spicy on your tongue. And technically, good, high proof is supposed to hit you in the same place as a jalapeno does.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
At the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, that's where I'm feeling.
It's hot
too.
here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I also feel like we have a very special bottle here because it says batch number 1, bottle number 15. That seems like it's a special one.
that is. You guys might want to keep the last loop in that, because we, like I say, we just came out with this, and barrel ones are always really popular. And you guys just hit us at the right time. I was like, let's send them something new,
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting.
And this will be available around in spring, you said?
Yeah, it's available at the factory now, and we're running it out into the markets in Denver, in Iowa, in Nebraska this spring. So real soon. Yeah. Everything that's out there right now is a test bottle. So you guys are our space monkeys. Hopefully you enjoy it.
It's very good.
Yes, it definitely passed the test.
The flavor.
Yeah. It's got a good mouthfeel on it too. It's something that when we originally started the podcast, we didn't notice mouthfeel or texture as much. But the best way to become a better whiskey drinker or notice more things is by drinking more whiskey. So through our experienced craft here, it's something we've started noticing. And it's not thin, it's not too thick. I mean, it's got just the perfect right in the middle mouthfeel there.
Most of that mouthfeel comes from the yeast. the yeast that you use. And again, you guys probably know this, but just for your listeners' sake, yeast eats sugar, which creates alcohol. You know, back in the Roman days, fruit fell on the ground. Native yeast hit the fruit, starts creating alcohol. Somebody ate the fruit, got a nice little whiskey buzz, and they're like, "Hey, we ought to do this on purpose." And what we try to do is make the yeast have plenty of sugars to feast on to create that alcohol. And the type of yeast you use is going to have a lot to do with mouthfeel.
Interesting. Which of the labels would you say is your best selling? Is there one that sells more than the others, or are they all pretty equal?
Black Label is the crowd favorite.
Is it?
Because it's, you know, the most traditional rye. And when you put rye on your bottle, your customers are going to be looking for a rye spice and the smoke. And I got to tell you that anything Black Label is going to make a really nice old fashioned. The reason I wanted to put Black Label and Red Label together was because I like the soft and sweetness of red. I like the spicy and the smoke of black. So my hope is that Copper Label ends up being our most popular because it's just the best all around. It's a good sipper. It's a good cocktail maker. It's got a nice little zip to it. So, you know, even with an ice cube, it, opens up very nicely. That's kind of why we created it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did make old fashions. We just added the ice to them. We didn't want to try them before we tried the sample on its own, because, you know, that can kind of change the flavors and what you're picking up. But it's really good in this as well. Stands out. It's not something that gets lost in the mix. That's something that I always kind of look for. And I know a lot of our listeners, they want something that it tastes good, but it also stands out in the mixed drink. So, and I think this definitely
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I always tell people, you know, how can you make an old fashioned with new liquor? You know, I mean, the old fashioned was invented back, you know, in the Prohibition era, and yet people are putting new liquor on old fashioned. It's like, you should probably try what they were drinking with old fashions when the drink was created, which is a rye, and better yet, a Prohibition era rye. So we think our old fashioned is right up what old fashioned should have been.
Yeah, no, it's the sweetness obviously from the whiskey complements the old fashioned very well. I feel like I definitely like that. We talked a little bit about your guys' you know, kind of how you're in Vegas and you're in these different spots. I heard I watched something that you're, you know, Newport Beach, some Napa Valley stuff going on. Can you talk about your growth? And you can hit on those two specifically if you want to, but what the growth and what that means to you, given the history of it being your grandma's recipe and this all starting with her.
Yeah. The brand survival is everything for me. I mean, I'm not in this for the money. That a lot of people say that, but if you knew what I had done or what I've done and what I still do to get this brand out there and to get this recipe out there, it's a labor of love. And because I live in Vegas, Phoenix is very easy for me to get to. LA is very easy for me to get to. And obviously Vegas, I work Vegas a lot. So I work very aggressively to get the product into new markets and big markets. And like Phoenix and LA are huge markets, just like Vegas is a huge market. So it's not unreasonable for me to get up at 4 a.m, drive to Phoenix, be there by 9, show the product to 9 bars, get back in my car and drive back to Vegas and get home at midnight. That's just the work you have to do. And, you know, again, it's just, you got to be in it for the right reasons. And I feel like my grandmother belongs in history books as a strong, independent, you know, fiercely independent woman. And I think it speaks to the power of women. So I just, you know, I'm out there trying to put her where she belongs, you know, as a woman who did what she had to do at a really tough time in America and came out the other end with a wonderful family and some fantastic kids and grandkids. So You know, we're working the markets really hard. The bigger markets have better value. And although we'll always be in Iowa, there's more money in Phoenix and LA and Vegas for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How many states are you guys in?
We're in 29 states physically,
Okay.
44 states online. You can order our products online. When you go to our website, it's $22 for shipping, no matter how many bottles you buy. So obviously the shipping gets more reasonable as you order more bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And that's just the world we live in right now. You know, I don't know how Walmart can ship a tube of toothpaste to my front door in 8 hours for, you know, and the tube of toothpaste was $2. I'll never know how they do that, because I've searched the world over to find out how to ship throughout the United States for free. And it's $22, no matter who you talk to. So I'm like, well, could we make it $22 if you buy 3 bottles? They're like, yeah, a box is a box is a box. So, you know, if you go on our website, I mean, you can buy Black Label for $40. I think it's $41, and you can order 3 bottles, and they'll ship all 3, $40 a piece plus 22 shipping, which is a pretty darn good deal. And get it in 44 states. There's 6 states that are really tough, and we don't ship into those states just because they're tough states.
Yeah. Makes sense. Do you guys do any like barrel programs, or you could buy a barrel or anything like that?
You want to know a funny? That's a really funny answer. So we had our first person buy a barrel from us about a year ago, and he came back to us last week and bought his second barrel. So I've had an individual buy his second barrel. What's neat about a 15-gallon barrel is it's only 60. I shouldn't say only. It's 60 bottles. So like if we wanted to make the old-fashioned football podcast label for 60 bottles, we could put old-fashioned football podcast on the top of the bottle, and then our brand in the place it has to be as per the TTB, and you all would have your own whiskey. So that's
amazing.
our little white label program. You know, we sell that to restaurants, we sell it to bars, we sell it to fraternities, we sell it to motorcycle clubs. I mean, there is no other distillery that's saying, hey, listen, you want to have your own brand? 60 bottles, about $2,100, and you got your own brand. You can hand it out to all your friends and family.
Wow. Well, we're going to have some discussions on that.
I'm not trying to sell you guys here. I just use you as an example.
It's something we've talked about, though, and we've never heard anywhere close to that price. So that's an amazing price. So I mean, I encourage any listeners that are in business or anything to reach out and talk to you guys about that too, because that's incredible price, and this is really good whiskey. This
Very
is
good.
Really good.
Yeah, we actually sold this what you're tasting, the recipe that is. And you know, I don't sit on any, much like football, I don't sit on any particular political spectrum, but we're the first company to sell a barrel, well, actually 2 barrels of product to a former president for his resort. We actually did a Trump Doral barrel for the members, barrel for the guests. And for the record, I'd be happy to do one for Joe Biden too, if he wants to give me a call.
Right.
So, you know, it's not a political thing, but only liquor company I know of that's sold a barrel to a president of the United States for his personal resort. You can actually have a member's barrel and a guest barrel in Doral right now with our brand.
Oh,
that's cool.
That is very neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, you always like to be the first, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. And I apologize if you already stated this, but when was it that you and your family, when did you decide that you wanted to start distributing and sharing this family recipe with everybody?
That was decided without us, actually. So Whiskey Rich sought my grandma out while he was making liquor illegally.
Okay.
So Whiskey Rich's family was the 5th generation to make this recipe, and they sought my grandma out while she was in assisted living in Iowa, because she was an OG. She was the only person they knew that was still around that made that recipe at that time. So they went to her and they're like, we can't get the recipe right. What are we doing wrong? And she's like, well, this is wrong and this is wrong. And you change this and you do that. You know, she got them straight on how to make it. So in appreciation of her getting them on the right path, Whiskey Rich went legit in 2017. He was pretty much faced with go legit or don't come home. That was his options. Yeah. So he went legit and opened the distillery in 2014, correction. So almost 10 years ago. But what was neat about Whiskey Rich is he was giving proper credit to my grandma. He was like, listen, this isn't my recipe. This is Lorine Sextro's recipe. But he was calling her Lorine Sextro, not Lorine Sextro. So he was saying and spelling her name wrong. So that's how I got sucked into this. You remember when I said I didn't pick whiskey, it picked me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went into Carroll to that distillery strictly to tell him, hey, listen, if you're going to talk about my grandma, you should probably spell her name right. And you should probably pronounce her name right. And it's at that point in time that he's like, oh my God, I've been looking for a Sextro family member to be part of the distillery. You know, this is your grandma's recipe. It's the only, you know, he tells me all these things. So that's how I got involved in the whiskey business. Is I just went in to get him to correct the name. And then I got to try the product. I didn't even drink liquor prior to owning the distillery, not beer, not wine, and certainly not liquor. But what I tasted, and more importantly for me, and it's just my thing, how I felt after I drank it. Because the reason I didn't drink, I mean, everybody likes to tie one on, but the how I felt days, almost weeks after with some of the products. And I'm, you know, if you guys remember the commercial, Jose Cuervo was like, oh, tomorrow's overrated. And I'm like, oh, hell no. You know, tomorrow is priceless. Yeah. So the fact that I got to try my grandma's recipe, it tasted fantastic. I felt relatively good after drinking it. That was an aha moment for me. And that's how I found out about my grandma being a bootlegger. And she left a letter behind. We always knew she had done bootlegging, but we didn't know her recipe. We didn't know a lot of the things she did. So all this came out after I got involved. So it like I say, I didn't pick it. It picked me. That's why I feel such a burning desire to get out there. I think there was a purpose behind that. I think she feels a bit slighted, as well as the other 15. You know, it said 5 to 15 other families made this recipe, but none of them get credit. So my whole goal is to give credit where credit's due. The independent small farmers who did it to, you know, feed their kids and did it for all the right reasons. And so that's kind of what I'm doing out here and how it found me and why I'm out there pushing it out to the public so hard.
Very cool.
One of the things for me, like when we do like drink whiskey and there's so many products out there where you'll drink it and you feel awful, or because there's so many chemicals in it. So for me, like I never really used to like different whiskeys, but I find that whiskey is a lot more pure than a lot of what's out there. So, and I don't feel as bad, or I don't have reactions. A lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people recently, they get really flushed or they get congested when they're drinking certain liquors or things like that, because there's so many chemicals and not natural ingredients.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people choose tequila, is because tequila there are tequilas out there that have no additives, have no color. You know, they're just basically piñas and yeast and grinding and, you know, old school. You know, a lot of Mexico is like the United States in 1932 as far as their living conditions. So, you know, they don't have all that industrial age stuff. But I'll tell you what, I believe with all my heart that people will care when they're woken to the difference. And I don't think, I honestly think that in the liquor business, enzymes is the dirty little secret. It's like nobody wants to talk about enzymes. Nobody wants to talk about They want to talk about barrel this and how long it's been in the barrel that. And everybody has to realize the reason that whiskey's put in a barrel is for filtration. The whole purpose to a barrel is to filter out imperfections. That's why when I tell you that my white product is what I personally love, because our white product is like getting out of the pool without a swimsuit on. There's nothing to hide. You're
Right.
there. It's there.
Mhm.
And if you can make that beautiful, because you'll notice a lot of liquor companies can't make their white beautiful. They need the barrel to hide behind, and they need it to filter. Well, if you can make white liquor that tastes delicious, and ours does, we received LA Spirits, Clear Spirits of the category in LA. We scored 93 in Wine and Food magazine for white spirits. That's like being a supermodel without a swimsuit. It's you got to be good to pull that contest off. So I can't wait till you guys go to the distillery and try it off the still at 165 proof. That might sound horrible, but I'm telling you right now, it will blow your mind. It'll be something you'll tell all your friends about. And my ultimate goal is to have that offering in Vegas as a tourist attraction. That's what I work on today, is an Iowa distillery, not even a block off the Vegas Strip, showing people what Iowans did to make things happen.
That's cool.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
I think we're ending our questions here, but I'm curious, do you get any pushback because whiskey changed, from how it was made back in the 1930s to now? Do you get any pushback of anybody saying, well, that's not how whiskey's supposed to be made because it's regulated? Now I think a lot of money got involved and started regulating, like, oh, you got to do it this way. Do you get any pushback because of that?
Oh, absolutely. So what we make is 1932 whiskey. Technically, what we make now is not whiskey at all.
Yeah.
If you look at the bottle, it doesn't say whiskey on it, because as per TTB, Tax and Trade Bureau in Washington, D.C., you have to use chemicals to make whiskey. You can't put any sugar in your mash bill or it's not whiskey. Well, now think about that. If the only way you can get starches to break down into sugar is chemicals, and you got all these old school using sugar, because that's what you're using chemicals for, is to get grains to turn into sugar.
Yeah.
Well, then why not just give yeast what it wants in the first place without all the hoo-ha, and just give it sugar, which is exactly what we do. And then we soak the grains to get the starches out. We don't beat the grains up. We soak the grains for weeks, like they do with tequila piñas. We soften it up. We actually bring it back to life. We green malt. We don't even grind our grain. We leave the grain whole while it's still alive when we go into the fermentation and into the distillation process. So my point to you is that there'll be even more pushback. The more you hear from me and the more I'm out in the public saying, hey, you might want to pay attention to that dirty little secret that nobody's talking about. And that's the category defining moment. That's the category defining topic. People are going to be like, listen, I don't want to put that garbage in my body.
Right.
I'm telling you guys, okay, so maybe I'm selling you something here. That's what everybody's going to think. Hey, maybe this guy's selling me something here. Here's my ask of anybody and of you is just one day, give me one day of your life and drink nothing but what I make. Don't drink any beer. Don't drink any wine. Don't drink any mixers. Just what I make. And tell me how you feel the next day. That's what got me into this business.
Yeah.
The first thing I ever had where I didn't feel like an ashtray and wasn't ruined for days. And I was like, oh my God, all of this, I don't want to have a drink. That's gone.
Yeah.
I can have a drink. I just don't want to have all the chemicals that come along with it. And that's how big liquor crowded out little liquor. And I refuse to change because I honestly believe that what we do is the best version of what is out there. It just has to be discovered.
Sure.
So please give me that day in summarization. Give me that one day, 3-4 drinks, have a little bit of water, and tell me if you don't feel fantastic the next day.
You don't have to twist my arm. I'm there.
Absolutely.
No, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that's something that
Mhm.
your grandma would be proud of too. I mean, being
Yeah.
that this was her recipe, this is how she did it.
Yeah.
Keeping it that way for sure. You have
Yeah.
anything else you wanted to add or
Well,
ask?
And just that, is there anything else that maybe we didn't ask that you want to share?
I just want to ask anybody who sees this to come to the distillery in Carroll, Iowa to try this. And I beg you guys to do it too. I know it's a big trip for you. I know you got to do some planning, but you got Storm Lake. So now you really don't have an excuse.
No.
I swear to you, anybody who comes through the factory, and it's not even a factory, it's more like a bakery. It's got the bakery vibe. It's so the way it used to be. Take the time to stop by. Let us show you what we really do. Take a sip off the still. It'll be something you'll talk about forever. And I'd love everybody just to stop by to check it out. We don't charge a thing, so we're not trying to get your money. We're just trying to show you what real looks like and what everything else is. And from there, we'll let the product speak for itself.
Carol's almost centralized between us, your parents, and my parents. So
we
I
just
think
get
we
the
all
whole
just
group
meet
together
there.
and
Yeah.
plan a
Bring them all.
some
I had
Saturday.
100 family members in the distillery when we got going. All the family. The good side, the bad side, everybody in between. And we had a wing dinger, and didn't charge anybody anything, and we all had a great time. And they all left huge fans of the brand and huge fans of the story, and that's what we're trying to do here. Is just get history straight. So please join us at your convenience, and hopefully anybody who sees this will take my personal invitation to go see how it used to be and see how delicious it is.
Yeah, for sure. Any of our Iowa listeners, which we have a good group of, make sure you make time to get up there. If you're not in Iowa, seek it out where you are. Look for the Iowa Legendary Rye or the Sextro Rye, or go online and order it. We're going to have all the links to where you can order it posted in our post and on this podcast, so they can check it out there. Any last minute things you want to add? Otherwise, we really appreciate your time and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. This has been so interesting. I love hearing the history and the stories behind it, and this has been a fun one for us, for sure.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. I love what you're doing. It's all about community, and it's people like yourself that help craft brands such as ours to, get out there and show people what's different. So thank you for that. I hope you enjoy the bottle, and you might want to leave at least one last shot in that. It'd probably be something someday for you. So thank you for that, though.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. That was an amazing interview.
It was. There's so much history and information. I think it is so cool. Just the whole, that there's barrels buried on your family's property.
Oh, man.
And possible bottles, and maybe the still. So you're
to find the still.
Yes, to find that and to train cadaver dogs to hunt whiskey.
I'm surprised they didn't end up at our house.
And to be able to find that is just so amazing. That is a story. I was not expecting that story.
Same.
That's just so cool.
Agreed. Yeah. The tribute to Heath's grandma, Lorine Sextro, who, like you said, was 18 years old and had to feed her family.
Yeah.
And so she found out how to feed her family by bootlegging.
At 18.
Yeah.
We're in our 30s, and why aren't we making whiskey?
I'm ready to bootleg some whiskey right now.
It's not bootlegging now, but why aren't we making whiskey?
I'm ready to make some whiskey, but until I do, make sure you check out. You can find it, Sextro Rye, Iowa Legendary Rye. Does have different names. Look in our post. You're going to be able to find out. There's Lorine and Frank Shorty Sextro, the brain behind this awesome whiskey. That, like we said, according to the corporates, you can't call it whiskey. Can't call it a whiskey, but
it is whiskey.
This is whiskey. You taste this, you can taste that it's whiskey. It's really good rye. It's got a nice sweetness. There's a little bit of spice. We talked about that heat that you feel only on the tongue. That heat does not travel down. It's just nice on the tongue.
It warms you. It's a whole body warmth, which
Yeah,
I enjoy, especially in the winter. It is going to be like 60 degrees.
I know.
But
warm weather days in Iowa. This is like summer.
but
We're like
coming off of those January 40 below days.
Yes.
The warmth, it's just, this is good. I am still sipping on our sample because you poured a generous sample for us to taste on the show.
Not generous enough for myself, unfortunately.
But it is so good.
But it is very good.
Really enjoy this. So you will be able to get this bottle of the Sextro Rye Copper Label
Yes.
this spring, and I highly recommend it. Go get yourself a bottle. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on the show before about how no chemicals and just natural, like just how
That's your thing.
It is my thing. I get on my soapbox way too much with my family and friends, and they're just tired of it. But we are so contaminated with chemicals and artificial shit in our daily lives, and so many people aren't aware. And I feel like I'm just continuously finding more and more things that are fake, like that have artificial.
Yeah.
Here I go. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole.
Well, I'm gonna cut you off for a second. No, I'm gonna cut you off for a second to say even the fact that you don't think about where your grains are coming from, and these grains are coming from an organic farm. Like that really jumped out at me. It's like, oh, I never thought about the fact that where's this grain or this rye or whatever for this mash bill? Where's it coming from? What's been added to it? How has it been enhanced? And this one is all organic.
To have thought of that before. How are you married to me and not thought about that? Because
in whiskey, I didn't think of it though.
Even like with our own garden, everything we do, we've expanded our garden last year here. We're expanding it again this year because we're just apparently we don't to be even
free time.
Well, we don't have free time as it is, so we like to even like stress ourselves out more. But gardening is like therapeutic.
We need to. I was thinking we need to grow some rye. Wouldn't that be cool?
I've never grown grain except for sweet corn. But that's not really
growing some grain, some rye. That's the first step to being a bootlegger. I know you don't have to bootleg these days, but
we can't be bootleggers.
But until then, I think we seriously, the Brass Giraffe, which if you've watched us before, that is the name of the bar downstairs, or what the bar will be. It will be the Brass Giraffe. The Old Fashioned Football's Brass Giraffe. We'll work Old Fashioned Football into it somehow, but I think it needs its own whiskey.
A Brass Giraffe on a label.
Yeah.
And it can be Old Fashioned. It would have to be. Maybe we would be giving away bottles on our show.
On a copper label. That seems to fit almost a brassy color. I don't know.
If this is we really are like, we're not just talking. We are gonna get up to Carol. It's up to Carol.
We're gonna do we're gonna do a little vlog on the YouTube with it. I think that's a good idea to kind of show the distillery
tasting right off of the still.
Yeah, we're gonna do a little vlog on that. So stay tuned for that for sure.
Because Carol is like, it's the perfect middle point for all of us, and we'll bring friends, family. It'll be a good time. So we're going to do that. So there will be more of Sextro Rye or Iowa Legendary Rye to come on Old Fashioned Football.
Let's call it Iowa Legendary Rye to have some Iowa pride, which, as Heath mentioned, there's not enough of apparently. When you go out of state, people aren't seeking out the Iowa stuff. So let's make sure we call it the Iowa Legendary Rye. We're going to have the links in our post. We're going to have a post with this. We'll have all the links of where you can go order this, so you can try it yourself. You can visit their socials as well. We'll have links to that. This was a lot of fun. The history and everything was great. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just get out there, get yourself some Iowa Legendary Rye
tomorrow, or maybe today when you're listening on Thursday. We will be spinning the winner wheel for our giveaway for our merch contest. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to be talking wide receivers, tight ends.
It's not too late to get into the merch contest. It's still January 31st. The contest ends today.
Depending when they listen. But yeah.
Well, I don't know.
It's currently 8 o'clock.
It is
We're going to try to edit this as quick as we can and get it posted. Because this is not a live one. Obviously, we re-record or pre-record.
Yes.
Not re-record, pre-record. And then it'll go live on YouTube. But yeah. If you're listening on YouTube right now and it's 11:58, I don't care. Go place your order and then send me a screenshot or send Old Fashioned FB a screenshot, and we will get you entered. Every item is an entry. So make sure you go check that out. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, this has been good.
Yep, my old fashioned is gone. My pour is gone. I'm gonna pour some more. I know we're gonna preserve this bottle a little bit, but I'm gonna pour some more. I need something while I edit. You gotta have a little juice while you edit. And I will take Heath's challenge on of drinking 4 or 5 drinks of this in one day. Not today, but one day I will pick 3 or 4 drinks and see how I feel the next day. And we'll vlog that too. If you don't have anything else to add, like I said, my drinks are gone. Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Old-fashioned football.